Lao Tzu and Chuangzi are the very flowering of mysticism in China. In fact, Confucius himself is said to have called Lao Tzu a dragon, meaning that he was an exceedingly unique individual, not only as far as wisdom went, but as far as the existential realization of enlightenment went. The dragon was considered a symbol of the highest, the most transcendent. And Taoism is, in fact, the most extraordinary gift in the realm of the spiritual that China has gifted the world. But it's very interesting about how deeply interconnected Taoism is at a subterranean, hidden level with Indian spirituality. You see, the word Tantra by and by got changed. It became Tauta, and eventually it got transformed into Tao. And you can see very clearly that the psycho spiritual practices of Tantra are absolutely in conjunction with all that Taoism stands for. From the sacred sexuality to the concept of energy points in our body, to the idea that everything goes back into a great nothingness, a great emptiness. Taoism and Tantra are like two flowers on the same branch. Yes, some manifestations of them are different, but at a very root level, they are joint. And this is just like how Dhyan became Chuan in China and became Zen ultimately in Japan. So that is the Buddhist side. That is from Gautam Buddha to Mahakashyap, the whole tradition carried through by Bodhidharma into the Shaolin Temple, into a journey towards South Korea and finally towards the Zen culture of Japan. That is one side. And the journey of Taoism is from Tantra to Tao. Now, this is something not recorded in the history books. History does not record anything other than the bare facts. History is not very subtle. History records the overt facts. It cannot have the bandwidth to record the covert development, especially so in the realm of the mystical, the realm of the spiritual, which by its very nature is so subtle. But if we dig deeper, we find that the subterranean stream is the same. What does Taoism say? Taoism says that we have been used to looking at the sky of being only through that window frame within our own house. But the sky is unlimited, the sky is infinite. We only look at it from this perspective of the window that we have. And so too does Tantra. We look at life through a fixed frame. We look at life through a very narrow vista. Come out of that, and then you see the sky is infinite. So both Taoism and Tantra are eventually about expansion. And Tantra, by its very nature, means expansion. It means expansion of our psychospiritual abilities, our expansion of mind, our expansion of heart, and so on. And really, both sciences, both spiritual sciences, are deeply connected when it comes to the idea of ecstasy, when it comes to the idea of experiencing bliss. Tantra says that at the basis of everything is simply bliss. Nothing else exists. And so too does Taoism. When we awaken to this bliss, we realize the path. We realize the presence of the vast. We realize the presence of the infinite, the unbounded, the unlimited. On the one hand, Taoism tells us to not get so deeply involved in the mind. Don't be so head heavy. And so does Tantra. But at the very basis is the idea of energy. Both these psychospiritual sciences are eventually about how we utilize our energy in life. And our primary and fundamental energy is really to be used for finding our original face, our original self. When we find that original self, when we find that fundamental reality of ourselves, then only do we relax into our beings. Both methods tell us to completely negate what we think is essential. Everything is unessential. Keep hacking away. And then you find that at your very center, there is a oneness of being. At your very center, there is utter simplicity. At your very center, you are simply a reflection of universal bliss, of the universal Tao, of the universal energy, of the universal grace. So, really, India and China have always been linked for thousands of years in so many myriad ways. But it is quite unfortunate that not enough has been done to understand the bridge of the mystical between these two countries. And that is the most fundamental thing. You see, culture, art, all these things are expressions. But at the very foundation is the mystical connect, is that vibe, is that synchronicity of two great cultures. If we understand that, then this becomes a spiritual journey into understanding the heart of both countries. And when that is done, all other understanding can build from there. So in today's world, it is even more important for us to emphasize the fundamental mystical oneness between cultures, and particularly cultures which have such a strong and ancient standing. You see, the Chinese are very proud of their culture. The Chinese, some people say, have a certain chauvinism about their culture, as if it's superior. And in a way, we too in India have that. We feel we've been the greatest civilization in the world and so on. But really, we're standing apart. Something needs to bridge. Something needs to create an understanding which is at the level of the meditative, which is at the level beyond the obvious, which is at the level beyond that which is overt, at the very subtle level, at the level of energy, at the level of understanding each other's basic spiritual motivations. If these two civilizations can begin to understand each other better, that would be the ultimate thing. That would be the climax almost of each other's civilizations. And it can be like a confluence of two rivers. So there's no need to look at Chinese culture as isolated, unique, and so on. There's no need to look at Indian culture as isolated, unique, so on. The truth of the matter is, cultures always intertwine. Cultures always influence one to the other. And yes, it is true that India has been a birthplace of much of civilization. A lot spiritually has gone from here. A lot has come here also, but what has gone from the soil of India has been infinitely more so. The influence of the Buddha, the influence of the rishis, the influence of Vedanta, the influence of Tantra. And the influence of Tantra has been ignored specifically because Tantra, in any case, is a very secretive path. Tantra is a little difficult. It does not believe in cliches, it does not believe in expressing things flippantly. It believes in the essential, it believes in a clarity of vision at the deeply mystical level, into the deepest mysteries of life. It helps you become more loving, it helps you wear your authentic face, and that is why we need to understand it more and more. Both Tantra and Taoism are all about spontaneity, all about naturalness, all about being your most essential self. Leaving aside everything, being in your self nature. They strip existence down to its most basic. They talk about consciousness. And in that way, both are utterly beautiful, both are absolutely pristine. The touch of religion has not stained them. Taoism stands apart, Tantra stands apart. If we understand this, we realize Tantra and Taoism are twins. They are feeding off the same spiritual source. They're getting nourished by the same spiritual source. Or it's like two plants side by side growing out of the same soil. The same water will nourish them. Each will have its own flowers, each will have its own fruit. But the same water, the same sunlight, the same conditions are nourishing them. And that is how China and India have been. It's time to look beyond the parochial worldview in China, in India, and to look at a truly universalistic worldview. And spirituality, mysticism can help us do that. Hence, it has a very practical value in the world also. It is not just a vague thing. No, it helps us bring insight into our ultimate state of being. It helps us bring self-understanding into who we are, where we come from, how we influence each other. India is not an island. China is not an island. In the sense that they haven't been just isolated from the world. No, they have been nourished by various streams of thought in the world. And the beauty of Sanatan Dharma is that it has given much. And one of the rare things it has given in a very hidden form is this gift, is this worldview that all things are energy, all things are consciousness. And this worldview has got translated into a beautiful expression in China. You see, the idea of Zen is also a little similar. Zen talks about how tea came about when an Indian monk called Bodhidharma went and meditated in China and discovered the tea leaf. So that is one level. And the other level is really the level of Taoism, where it's all about changing the direction of your consciousness from the mundane to the metaphysical, from the lower to the higher, from the uncreative to the creative. And that itself is Tantra. That itself is the deepest path of mysticism. That itself is the bridge which joins these two great nations.